Hello and welcome to the Green Profit Academy Pros podcast. This show digs into the challenges in growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit. I'm Christine Era.
And I'm Steve Bousquet. We are the green industry experts in profit, growth, and leadership. Hello, Christine. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's the end of the week, so it's always a good day when you reach the last day of the week.
Yeah, we're a little bit more than halfway through February. So spring is fast approaching. And if you're in the green industry or any kind of service or trade industry, you're always looking forward to spring, or at least I hope you are.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those, it's good, it's bad, it can be ugly, depending on how prepared you are to roll into your spring. But this year has definitely gone by fast.
Yes. Today's episode, we're going to be exploring the 5 essential steps to increasing your business's value, the value of your business. Running a business it's so challenging, but with the right strategies, we can significantly increase our value of our businesses. Whether you're looking to sell your business in the future or you simply want to build a stronger, more profitable business, we have 5 crucial steps for you today.
Yeah, and I love this topic because I feel like, for years we've been talking about how we make our business into an asset. And, also look at it from how can I sell it in the future? And in working with CPAs over the years, I either hear most businesses can't be sold or the clients we work with can sell their business. And I think it's extremely important. We had Linda Staff on here a few episodes ago, and she dove into, her Done in 5 program, which really focuses on turning your business into an asset and knowing where are you at and how do you close that gap. So I think today is a great topic to just kind of step back and look at what are some of the simple things, the essential things, the foundation to increase a business's value. What does that look like?
And step number 1 is streamlining our operations, right? So get your operations in line. But what does streamlining your operations even mean? It means becoming efficient, because efficiency is the key in any business, right? It's especially important in the green industry and in trade industries where margins are tight and competition can be quite fierce in many markets.
Yeah, and there's different ways to streamline. It's some people may not see it. This may not be where their strengths are. They might just be really good at their trade and what they do. So when they look at the internal operations, this idea might be a little confusing for them. So they're like, oh, what can I do? Or it might even be something that they don't like. So maybe they should not be the person to do this. One of the things, to do is to automate processes. So there's so much technology out there right now, and it's continuing, to improve, to automate scheduling, billing, communication, client relationships, collections. There's so much out there, and these software platforms are built for these industries. So some of them are specific to lawn and landscape. Some of them are more specific to trade. And there's even ones that are specific to pest control companies and, all of the above. So, any way that you can implement a software to automate your processes, one that's going to create more profit and efficiency and require less team members. So that's a great place to dive into.
Yeah, and automation can be simple or it can be really complicated. Like automating payroll was a wonderful thing for our company, where my team is punching in when they clock in, punching out, but also what they're doing when they're switching from one role, whether it's sales or production, they can clock in and out. So my team, that gets tracked effortlessly. Also, if we're doing non-billable shop work, or billable work. They can clock in and out of that. And then we have a really good handle on if we pay somebody $2,000, 2,000 hours a year, how many hours are they billable? How many hours are they not billable? So we're making sure we're recovering that non-billable overhead. And the reports are nice. They're easy. There's different, we're using some paychecks, but there's I think you guys really, what's the company that you use for your payroll?
We use Gusto.
Gusto, right? And there's others. There's Busy Bee. There's all kinds of different things. That's a simple one. And another thing is just to automate deliveries, automate when things get picked up, automate, renewing services, automate renewing wearable items. Like, we have Napa that will deliver stuff to us, right? So we know in the season, once a week, we get this thing, so every week on Thursday, the guy shows up with this, 2-cycle oil or whatever it is. So you can even automate things like that. And then also for scheduling, the new scheduling, there's that black box routing for scheduling like lawn applications or any mowing or any type of service that has repeatable services. That technology is even gotten way better. Another automation to streamline is measuring properties online, and through the overhead. So even if you go out there, if you're going out to the property, you already have the property measured and you just have to make minor adjustments as opposed to wheeling it around, doing the math in the field, drawing out the hand map. So that is another big automation that has really helped. Next is trimming excess cost.
Yeah. And a lot of things that you just, went over, Steve, that will trim excess cost, right? Because it's streamlined. So it helps with man hours and, time on the road and all of those things. So some of the excess costs that you want to look at is anything that isn't serving your top customers. So, and you don't want to cut the wrong things. And this is typically what we see where, they're going, well, we just don't need to do that anymore. And it's like, well, what does that serve? So when you look at excess costs in your company, you want to look at what is serving our top customers and invest in that. But there might be like little memberships or something, reoccurring transactions that you don't need. You might find that you're still leasing that copier from all those years ago. And since you've gone to paperless, because you did automate your system and get a software in place. And so your office team might need like a desk scanner instead, which could cost maybe a couple $100 per scanner versus a couple $1,000s a month. So there's areas where you can trim out any sort of waste. Having vehicles too long is another area of waste to where they've just lived their life, but you keep dumping expenses and repairs and maintenance into these things. So it might be time to let some of those things go.
Yeah. And the first time I heard the term sunk cost theory, and then it was explained to me, I'm like, oh, that's me, right? So I have a truck. It needs to get repaired. It needs a new rear end, put a new rear end in it. That's $2,000. Then it needs a new transmission, and that's $5,000. Well, I already put $2,000 into it. So I put the $5,000 into it. Now I have $7,000 into it. And then it needs a head gasket, and that's going to be another $1,500. Well, I already got the transmission, the rear end. So next thing you know, I have a $16,000, on and on. You just keep fixing these vehicles. And it's to the point where literally if you just threw it away or traded it in or got rid of it, it would be cheaper than keeping it and putting yourself through that. Because there's also where the loss is the downtime. So it's a double dipper. You're paying to get it repaired and fixed, and you're not getting any revenue on that. So it's really dangerous to keep those vehicles that are breaking down all the time. Now, sometimes it's good to keep older vehicles if they're just going through brakes, tires, right? Wear items. That's a different conversation because that's what they go through. That's a variable cost and that's an expected cost. But getting rid of things is really important. Getting rid of tools and equipment that don't serve us or our very best clients. The next is optimizing the supply chain to ensure that you're getting the best prices from your suppliers without sacrificing quality.
Yeah, and we've talked about this several times on our podcasts. I think, it's there is opportunity in creating long-term relationships with vendors, or even with the sales reps, and ensuring that you're taking the time before the season starts or before each season starts to look at what's our inventory, what are we spending? If we order in bulk and we put money away for prepaid materials, is that going to help us and save us? What does that look like? And we just had a review call, with a client who does pre-order materials. And we looked at his last year to this year, prior year costs. And it was a huge chunk of money that he was saving from finally getting to that point where he could pre-order materials because he was ordering them in bulk. They are saving on shipping costs. So there was thousands in shipping costs that they weren't spending. And then they were saving on, price per unit. So how much they were actually spending, based off of its use. And it made a huge difference, in their bottom line with their cost of goods sold, because one, they knew they had it on hand and they were getting the best price for it. And they weren't sacrificing the quality. It was still the same material that they were using before.
Yeah, and optimizing your supply chain can mean different things for different people, right? For me, because I have the capacity to store a lot of material, we have our own forklifts, we're getting everything by the truckload. But if you don't have that capacity, some people are going down to that site one or that, their local vendor on a real frequent basis. And even though they're going to be paying $6, $7, $8, $10, $12 more a bag than we pay, I have to pay for the forklift. I have to pay for the warehouse. I have to pay for, the storage. I have to, all this stuff, right? The property that the storage is on. So there's a cost to that. So even though it seems like they're paying so much more per bag, when you take the forklift and the warehouse and the property and all that management, they're not paying that much more really. So sometimes actually paying more can be an efficient use of your supply chain because it's just in time. You're picking up that material the day you need it. And then you don't have to store it. You don't have to load it. And so there's different costs to look at, ways like that. So just be aware of that. And the other thing with the supply chain is making sure that you have it when you need it. That just in time is really important, because what's really expensive is not having it when you need it to do a job, and you're holding a job up, or you have to go back twice because you didn't have all the materials that you needed. So really focusing on the efficiency of making sure you have everything you need before you go to do a job.
Yeah. And I think what you're sharing there, Steve, is business owners being aware of their business model. What is their business model? What is their setup? And don't try to be something that you're not. So if you don't have the space to store, what's the best way to set up a system to get what you need at, the most efficient cost, versus your setup to where they can come drop things off and you have ample space in your yard for your guys to get what they need when they need it.
Right. And there's a cost to it each way. You're going to pay either way. You just want to be aware of which way that you're paying. And I'm not saying either one is better or worse than the other one. There's a cost to everything. So just be aware of that. So the next essential function to increase value in your business is to focus on customer service.
Yes. And customer service. So when we have exceptional customer service, which really comes from our team, it's going to set you apart from your competitors, because your team members are handling your customers with extreme care, kind of like you would. And then when that happens, of course, you get repeat business and referrals. So this is where, that return on investment comes back. When you invest in your team, you take the time to hire the right people, and you also take the time to ensure that the people that you hire are onboarded properly, like they know expectations. They have the training that they need, to communicate and manage whatever area that you're making them responsible for, that you're saying, hey, this is your job. They understand what it is. That might, they might need some documented, systems and processes, right? So it's like, so that way they have some sort of guideline to follow, which is really important. So investing in training your team and investing in your team engagement can really help just in a very easy way support that customer service that you want to provide as if you were taking care of your clients, or customers directly.
And, that customer service can mean different things to different people in different markets, and training is really important for that. Practicing is really important. If you listen to our podcast, you hear me talk about practicing things all the time, practicing customer service, because guess what? It's not if you're going to get a difficult client or a difficult customer, it's when, right? So how do we handle that? And what's the level of upsetness? We have numbers here in my company, like there's a 1 through 5. And if it's 1 through 5, these people handle it. I don't handle it until it goes to 9, 10, or 11 out of 10, right? So you also have to have, excuse me, you also have to have, practice and awareness of what levels these people need service at. So it's not everything's an emergency. There's very few lawn emergencies, very few. So we want to make sure our team can handle that, or even landscape emergencies, maybe once in a while, but very few.
Yeah.
Not even insulation emergencies too often.
Yeah, we always say that too. Like there's not that many emergencies in accounting or bookkeeping. We're not an emergency room here. So one of the other things that's really great to do is to solicit feedback. And this can be an area that gets lost when it comes to customer service. So because the company's so busy servicing the customer. And it might be, just kind of that whack-a-mole management to where they're like, oh, we get feedback when they call us to complain or they need something, right? So that's not the approach that you want when you're getting feedback from your customers. You want to understand, be intentional about it. Ask them like, hey, what can we improve? What are we doing right? And this is a pumpkin plan strategy, right? When you're reaching out to your customers, and first you want to start with some of your best customers, ask them, what are people in this industry doing right? And if you could improve one thing from this industry that they do, what would that be? Tell me about that. So you're not saying, hey, tell me about my company. You're saying, tell me about how you feel or what you think about this industry. So what could a lawn care service provider, do better? What are they not doing that you would like them to do? So it's the way that you're phrasing the question, but really asking customers, what are we doing, and having a place for them to go to or a person to share this information is important.
Yeah, getting that feedback and not waiting for people to call about complaints or, buying something. That wish list interview is really powerful. We've done it twice already. We're due for our third time. And that's why we have the company set up the way we do with the communication, because that was the biggest thing for our giant pumpkins. They love calling my office. They like talking to my team. So we make sure that is the most available way to communicate, because they're local. My customers are, in the same state. They're in the same markets. They can drop by. They can pick the phone up, and it's not like getting a call center. And that is the feedback that we got from those wish list interviews.
Yeah.
The next is prompt response. And we did say there's no emergencies typically, but we want to make sure that we respond to customers' inquiries and complaints quickly and effectively. Now, one of the things that I've learned over the years is we don't want to respond too quickly, because sometimes they're upset and it's like an air, it's like a balloon. They're full of hot air because they're so upset about it, and they've whipped themselves into a frenzy, or the chirper at their house or their relationship has whipped them up even more. So sometimes it's good to take that message and let them know you'll call them back. Someone will get back with you tomorrow, unless it's like, a crazy, weird, unusual emergency. Let the person calm down, or even if it's a couple hours, a few hours. But taking those calls immediately and not letting that person who's very upset calm down, it can be a challenge. Now, on the other hand, if it's a simple request and you just want to respond quickly. So you have to know, like, again, level 1 through 7 is quickly, 7, 8, 9, 10, give it a little time.
Yeah. And I've had several business owners ask me, like, how do you get your, customers that you work with to communicate the way that they do? Because I would say that we have a pretty strong, communication with our clients. And one of the things is out the gate is we set that expectation, letting them know, hey, this is how we're going to communicate with you. Is that okay? Is there something that this would not, go well with? So we're letting them know how we're going to show up and communicate and how quickly the response time is. So that's helpful for my team and also for our customers. So if they message us, let's say on a Friday afternoon at 4 p.m., it doesn't matter if it's Eastern time or Pacific time, they know that they're not going to get a response until Monday sometime, by the end of day Monday. So we have, depending on, the client and what they're engaged with us, we have a response time laid out for them. So they know what to expect and they don't get upset. So there's no room for assumption, like, nobody got my message, nobody's getting back to me, so, and then I like to, Steve, how you laid out, like, what level of, does this need to be at and who should respond and how much time is associated with that? Is it easy? Is this person upset? And giving them space. And I would also say that when people call a company that they're paying a service for, part of it is they just want to be acknowledged and heard. And they want to know, okay, this person got my message. They hear and understand my objective. What am I upset about, or what do I need? And they're going to pass this communication on and get back to me. And that can turn, an emotional, heated situation or customer, it can diffuse them greatly by the time that you're actually talking to them, just saying, hey, I hear you. We are going to address this. Someone will get back to you. I appreciate you reaching out to us. And you should expect a call at the latest by this time.
Yeah. And, the nice customers or the pleasant customers, that's easy customer service, right? It's what really throws people for a loop is that difficult customer. And that goes back to kind of the wish list interviews, right? Who do we want to work for? We want to work for our very best clients. Mm-hmm. So if this person is difficult and it's an event, it's a one-time thing, okay, we pay way more attention to it. But if they call up, they're upset all the time about everything, then that's not really an ideal customer. That's a gourd customer. So they, definitely want to watch how many gourds that you have in your garden or weeds in your garden, because, just pay attention to that, because they'll drain your energy, zap your profit, exhaust your team. So customer services, you can be proactive, like you were telling about. This is how we communicate, way better than reactive. And you can explain to people, this is the kind of level of communication. So now we, in our CRM, we do have call log, which has been very helpful, because we've had people, and it's interesting. I'll get the message. They demand to speak to the owner. They get to me and they'll say, no one has contacted me. So I've been trying to get a hold of someone for a week, and I'll look in call log. Well, actually, we've been to their house twice this week. We've talked to them every single day. So I asked them, tell me more. But what they're really telling me is, no one's told me what I wanted to hear. So it goes back to that listening. I'm like, well, what is it? Help me understand, and I have to go through the whole thing. And so, usually it's really something went offline somewhere. So we have to dial them back in and help them understand that, like, for an example, the lawn was brown in the middle of the summer, and it was because his sprinkler system was not turned on. And he came back from vacation and he thought we burned the lawn and somebody else burned the lawn and all this stuff. And he was insisting that that sprinkler system was turned on. So, and they went out there and they showed him and all that stuff. So, but what happened was the wife was supposed to call and get it turned on. So she had to own up that she had forgot to call. Well, so it was a them thing. So I'm just using that as an example. That was a event, right? It was not a trend. So we worked it out. There's still a customer. Everything's good. But it was very interesting to hear some of the assumptions and accusations when you can just be curious and ask more questions. And then what happened? And tell me more. And that's even for like easy questions for customer service, like, tell me more. Like we'll get calls. When's my lawn going to be treated? What they're really asking is, I'm having a birthday party Saturday. Can you not come Friday? But they don't ask that. You're like, oh, so you're curious about when your lawn's going to be treated. Tell me more about that. And they're like, well, I'm having a birthday party on Saturday. Can I not be treated on Friday? Absolutely. What my team would hear sometimes, where are you? You better hurry up and get here, and not ask that one more question.
Yeah.
They're really good at it now, my team. So
the next area is build a strong online presence. And, this is, we're in an age where it's not just about, doing a mailer, handing out a business card, putting a sign up somewhere. And the strong online presence, it's kind of one of those non-negotiables that you need in order to really grow your business. And it's going to start with a professional website. And I know that there's plenty of companies out there that we've had some guests on our show even that do focus on this area of building a professional website and, even marketing. And your website, some of the things, you want it to be attractive, like speaking to your ideal customers. Who are they? You want to make sure the messaging is right, that it has the information that they need, and that it's easy to navigate. So you don't want them to have to dig for things to figure out how to get a quote from you, to contact you. You want the messaging to align with what it is that you do. So who are we? How do we service our customers? You don't want it to say something like, if you're trying to service high-end customers, you don't want it to say $25 off your first treatment. Because if you're trying to service high-end customers, they're not going to care about $25 off. And that's not giving the right message.
Right. That is not driving the message for high-end customers, right? Matter of fact, it's a nuisance because they're like, oh, what do I got to do to get the $25 off? I got to use this coupon code. I have to do this. It's a hassle. I already don't want to do it, and I'm not even buying it. What they want to do is they want to have a promise and a guarantee. They want that promise delivered. Really. That's what they want. Our customers want a promise, and they want that promise delivered. Only 20% of the entire market, of any market, is highly price sensitive. So 80% of the market is not. So if we're using coupons and low numbers or, discounts to attract customers, it's only really appealing to 20%. So we're ignoring 80% of the people who don't really care. They're not price sensitive. They're not stupid with their money, but they really want a product that's going to deliver on their needs more than $25. So, right. So make sure that your website matches your clients. You also really want to pay attention to your Google business profile. 50%, Tony Ricketts, when he was on, he shared that 50% of all lawn care and landscape leads in the nation come through Google business profiles. So pay attention to your Google business profile. Super, super important. And then your SEO optimization, and what is that? Search engine optimization. That just means you need to be out there in the web, getting backlinks, making sure that if you're in the chamber, that you're on their site with your website. If you're an association, you're on their website that has your link. And those are all like backlinks, but having articles and information about you, the owner, your team, people in the community, and your company will help with the optimization. And then the next one is active social media. And social media is social media. It's not necessarily for ads, even though there's a billion ads on it. For our clients in the communities, we live in these small communities, for lawn care and landscape. Small, I mean, it could be, a metro of Nashville or Memphis or Atlanta. But, we're serving we're not serving the World Wide Web. So making sure that you're out in front of people. And I even encourage people to join your local chamber of commerce and get involved. It's really good for social media, actually, because they do a lot of posting and they do a lot of cross marketing. And it's a good way to get out. It's very social.
Core Growth Strategies provides business growth management solutions through cloud accounting, bookkeeping, and strategic business consulting programs. Our team works with small businesses in lawn care and landscape and trade industries throughout the U.S. We increase our clients' business acumen by creating business performance transparency through financials and strategic advisement based on industry best practices and benchmarks. Our experienced team provides support, guidance, and coaching, thereby allowing our clients to connect with viable data and discover their own solutions. Core Growth Strategies programs and services are designed to get your business from where it is now to where you have always dreamed it to be. Visit us today at coregrowthstrategies.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Don't miss our exclusive limited time podcast special. Just mention promo code GPA Pro to any member of our team during your complimentary consultation, or enter the promo code on our site when you sign up for one of our online programs. That's promo code GPA Pro. Yeah, and the other thing I would say is, why would you want to build that online presence? When you have a good website and you have, those right search words, right? If you're starting out with something basic, just knowing what they look for in your area and associating those searchable words with your website, you're building this asset that when it's time to sell your company, it already has a great website. It already has a great, presence out there on the web. You have a marketing plan and social media plan built out. And this is an asset in your company. Just like if you have a software that you've built out that has a CRM in it and all the customers communicate to it, through it. And so does your team. You have an automatic billing system. So all of these things contribute to building assets for your business, to where if you go to sell your business, someone's going to look at, well, how's your marketing? Let me see it. What systems do you have? You don't want to be selling a job. You want to be selling a business, and a business comes with all these little different, pieces. So that's why it's so important to make sure just some of these basic, this basic framework is in place for your business to grow into an asset.
Yeah, and I have heard of people being offered between $50,000 and $150,000 for their website. If it's really well done, it has a huge market presence in a narrow market, a small market. So yeah, pay attention to your social presence. It adds a lot of value to your company. Next is grow your reputation. A strong reputation can be the biggest asset that you have in your community for your business, drawing in new customers and retaining existing customers. It's huge. Also attracting, guess who? New hires, new team members, right? I mean, imagine having a really strong, great reputation in your market as the go-to employer for whichever service you're offering. That's a huge benefit. But having that good reputation is worth, it's called goodwill in the value of your business, right? And it definitely adds value to your business.
Yeah, and this can include gathering reviews from, satisfied customers, like people that you work with. It's always great to, when you look for something, I always look at the reviews. I actually find them very entertaining because I'm looking and reading the reviews and I'm going, is this a real problem or is this a person problem, as it's, you know, what they're complaining about. And it gives me some insight too on how I would be able to work with the company or how they would provide me services. So, you know, the getting reviews, that really helps so people can see, you know, how many 5-star reviews do you have? If you do have a bad review, that's okay. No, not everybody's going to be your biggest fan, you know, and the people that have some sort of intelligence are going to be able to read through, you know, kind of the bad review and see if again, if it's, you know, a trend, you know, or an event. And also providing that good quality workmanship. So always deliver on high quality work to ensure customer satisfaction. And as the business owner, I feel like this is a challenge, and it's one of the biggest challenges that show up in our coaching programs is people say, how can I create consistency? Me, you know, as a business owner, I am not doing this anymore. So I have team members out there delivering services. How do I create that consistency? So it's, you know, a conversation that you have to have with your team. You've got to talk about it. You've got to lay out the expectations of what does high quality work look like? You know, how do you service a job? And then also practice it. And, you know, maybe even have spot checks on your properties.
Yeah, gathering reviews is really important. I read a review one time about a resort in Mexico. It was a 1-star because the sand on the beach was too hot for this woman to walk across. So it's like, okay, hot sand in Mexico, February, sounds good to me. But, you know, we get discouraged sometimes. We do get negative reviews. Keep going. Don't let that get you. You know, I've had negative reviews kind of like not overturned by Google, by talking to the people, actually going to visit them, saying what was wrong, how can we fix this, what was the issue, calling them on the phone. You know, sometimes not. Our worst reviews are people that we've never worked for. So, you know, that's always kind of disturbing, but just keep focused on it. Ask your best customers to give you reviews. And that really builds up the value of your business. And that quality workmanship, you know, keeping an eye on that, keeping that consistent is the most important thing. That consistent, you know, we can't do a good job once in a while. It needs to be consistent. And it's difficult. You have to have a lot of eyes and really pay attention to it, but it's really what makes the company valuable is that consistent workmanship and delivering on that promise. And then the community engagement I touched a little bit about with the chamber, but there's other things that you can do to get involved in the chamber. Habitat for Humanity, Big Brothers Big Sisters, chamber events. You know, we have in our town, we have Norwich events, and we sponsored the Santa Claus photo booth. 500 kids came through that booth with Santa. And, you know, it was such a I got thank you texts and calls from people in the community because they saw all the kids that were able to have that. And the Santa was legit. Like his beard was like full grown white. Like this guy was legit. So there's things like that you can do and get in front of your community. And it also builds the status of your company in the community, which builds value in your company.
Yes. And it's a great referral source, right? You're getting out there. People are connecting you with you in the community. And these are leads you won't have to pay for, right? Because you're building this reputation and connecting with people and saying, hey, I care about the community. And people start talking about that. So yeah, that's a really great point. And the next one is develop a skilled workforce. And I know Steve and I are so invested in investing in our team and making sure that, you know, our team grows, they learn, you know, and employees really, they're the backbone of our business. They keep our business going round, you know, and even good employees, if they leave, they will effectively pass the torch. Right. So if you need to bring someone on to train them because you've invested in somebody and they've grown beyond your company, they will help bring a new person in. So you have engaged employees. And, you know, even investing in their development, this is you will have a return on investment. And it is measurable. I actually talk about that in the book a bit of how you can measure, you know, how you're developing your team. with the development that you're paying for them and bringing them up.
And years ago, I remember, that there was people like, well, I don't want to invest and train my people because they might leave. And the question was, well, what if they stay and you don't invest and train and develop them, right? And so what do you have there? And by having these trained, developed employees and team members, right, we're just building the value of our company. If you had a potential buyer that came in and was like, oh, your team can do all that. Like you can literally go on a 4-week vacation or a 1-week vacation, and they can run it for that 1 week or 4 weeks. That builds the value of the company up. And also people want to work at a company that has development, learning, education, training. It's like, well, what's available? They don't want to be the same person every year. So if you're training and developing them, they become a new person. And in my company, we have a team of 30 people, which, is a small company. I don't have like a regional vice president and director of this and that. So instead of being like the vice president of, lawnmowers or vice president of spreaders, they have to grow internally because their position, they can only go so far in the company, but they can go really far as an individual. We can have them grow immensely from who they are when they came into the company.
Yeah. And this is, you want to create some sort of learning management system. And you might have heard of the, term LMS, like it's a learning management system. And you want to create a career path for them. So this can consist of many things, from going to classes, where they learn how to do their job in the trade a little bit more efficiently, or, efficient or at a higher level. This can also be things to where they know they're learning how to become a leader or a manager, right? They've got great potential and you're bringing them up. So you want to create some sort of success path, onboarding program that goes beyond the first year. And these are things when somebody comes to buy your company, they're looking at who's going to be the people that are still here when you're gone that I can lean into, because they want to buy something great. They don't want to buy a headache. So, they want to buy a company to where they know you have great employees that you have invested in. And also even maybe a hiring process. Like so many companies don't have a hiring process. They'll hire a recruiter or somebody like that, or they'll just post an ad and hope for the best. So really focusing on a hiring process that will hire, the skill or, the type of people that share your core values that you can train and, foster them into a great team that takes pride in their work. That's extremely important.
Yes. Systems of hiring, systems of developing, systems of training, systems of management, right? It all goes back to that. This is how we manage here. This is how when we hold meetings, this is KPIs that we hold people to in the meetings, right? This is our hiring system. This is when, this is how. That just builds value. If someone can walk in, if it's all up here in our heads, right? That devalues it. Get it written down, make a booklet. It doesn't have to be that complicated. It could be the 5 simple steps to hiring at your company, the 5 things we do, the 5 things we train on. We've had long conversations in my company because we have people that are like, they want to get it perfect. They want to have this great system. I'm like, well, what's the first 5 things they have to learn? Okay, this. What's the next 5 things? Okay, that. All right. Then once they knew that, what's the next 5 things? So break it down, right? The old saying, we don't eat an elephant in one bite. Break the training system down. People get stuck because they can't do the whole thing. But what's the first day at work look like for them, right?
Yeah.
What's the first week look like? So it's just in practicing, we have things that we practice on because they don't happen very often. But we want, like, changing a tire, right? When you get a flat tire, train people. Here, if we get a flat tire, this is how we deal with it in our company, right? And you could show a potential buyer, or you could show a potential hire, or even other people in the company. It just builds value to your company.
Yeah. So increasing the value of any business, it's going to be this multifaceted approach, which requires some attention to detail, commitment to quality. You need to understand the modern marketplace. Like don't leave your business behind in the old school ways, kind of look at what do we need to do to bring it up to current, and maybe that's switching systems, get a plan in place to do these types of things. You're really going to be streamlining your operations, focusing on your customer service, building that strong online presence and growing your reputation along with developing your workforce. So when you focus on these areas, you're really increasing the value of your business for the future as an asset. And they may seem things that, you're like, well, what about buying this equipment or adding this or adding that? There's more to the business when you're building it as an asset as far as what it owns. It's what is the structure. So, and it's not a one and done. So these are going to be things as your business, you scale and grow your business, you want to come back to these. It's going to be this ongoing process that you revisit on a regular basis. And we always ask ourselves and our company, how long is this going to serve us? Like if we're going to implement a CRM or we're going to implement a learning management system, what is the life of this system for us? And when do we need to be aware that it might need to change? Like it might be good for up to 10 employees. Well, what happens when we reach 12? Should we invest in something in this because we're already at 8 employees? So you're going to be looking at, the market as it changes, the new technologies that come out, and, slowing down to make sure that you're spending time building these systems in the right framework with the right technology that's going to serve your business in the long run.
Absolutely. It sounds like a lot, just one thing at a time, keep moving forward. That's really, business is a long game, and we can become overwhelmed with everything that has to be done in the long game and day to day.
Yeah. So there's some questions that business owners ask around increasing their value. And I kind of wanted just to unpack a few of these today. So one of the questions is, how can I differentiate my business from competitors to add value? So, that was one of the questions that they had. They're like, well, how am I going to be, better? How are customers going to find us? What does this look like?
Right. Better is better. Right. And so that's a struggle because a lot of businesses, even major corporations, I see they figured out a little bit more, but it always struck me when I was a marketing major in college, and low price. It can grab a certain portion of the market, that 20%. But I'm like, can't they come up with any other thing to attract clients than just the price? And Apple knocked it out of the park, right? People are lined up for these phones, camping out at night, iPad, all that stuff, high end stuff, not cheap, not the lowest, not even close to being the cheapest, but they have an incredibly loyal following for decades now. So how do you be different, right? What's the offering? And that's where those wish list interviews come into play, because you can really find out what you do that people value, what makes the difference, what people will pay more for, what adds value to your company and your services. So those wish list interviews, asking those clients, what matters to you when you have a service at your house? What matters to you? What's the most important thing? What bothers you? Maybe we'll do a wish list interview podcast, but identifying those unique services, developing your brand positioning with it, and then you can have competitive pricing, but you don't have to have low pricing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a good point, like identifying unique services, like what is it that you can provide that somebody else doesn't provide? This is something you kind of need to be mindful of, because you don't want to be everything to everybody, right? But you want to provide something to where they'll go with you because maybe you're the best at it. And an example, like we had our patio done, and we had a beautiful pebble coating done on it. And there were two contractors that we were considering. One guy had been doing it for, 20 plus years and had all this experience. And, he did a coat of, that was so thick, it was like 3/4 inch thick or something. The other guy had just started in the industry. And he was like, well, yeah, I'm just kind of picking this up. It's an add-on service. We don't really do it very much. And we do, a 1/4 inch coating. And immediately I went, yeah, I think I'm going to go with the first guy, right? It's like the other guy might be doing this as well, and he's cheaper, but I know the quality and the value that we're going to have with this other patio provider.
Yeah, you didn't want to be on that patio 3 years later and go, look at that chipping section over in the corner. Look at this, or it fades, or it doesn't hold up as well. And especially in Colorado, right? You got a lot of weather there. And it's high in the mountains. You got it's dry. There's a lot. Then it's wet winters. There's a lot can go wrong. So, right. So picking, how do we position our business to be the person that got chosen like that, right? And it's not by being cheap, it's by being different. So find out how you can be different to your clients and your market, and really lean into it. I mean, overdo it. Because that's what you're going to be known for, right? It's very interesting. I always knew in my business career, I was on the right track when I heard, well, nobody else does that. Our payment program, how we get paid. No one else does it like that. I was like, this was 25 years ago. I was like, yep, I'm on the right path. Nobody else. I was like, okay. And it's interesting because the way other people were doing it became really like friction points into people. And, there's a challenge around it, and people they went down that path because that's how everybody else did it. So if everyone else is doing it, my mom, I used to say to my mother, Mom, everybody, but everybody. And she goes, you're not everybody else. You are you. So, I was like, she's right again. So you do you. Great advice I got from 104-year-old Bill Aho. He's like, you do you. Yeah. And you can really compete and stand out in your marketplace that way.
So one of the other questions that came up is, what strategies can I implement to improve profitability? And I think this is a fantastic question. It's one of the areas in business that we focus on and coach around. And interestingly enough, with my accounting company, it is one of the things that we guarantee, that you will be profitable, which is if you're going through our program, which includes Profit First. So, which is a guarantee that how many other bookkeepers or accountants will give you, right? So it's a way that we stand out and provide value. So one of the primary ways to increase a business's value is improving its profitability. So this is a really great question. So one, we went over several of them today, is like operational efficiency. Where can we streamline our operations and save costs? Like, where's the waste? And there's always waste. Like we have a checklist that Steve and I created that gave some insight to some of our coaching clients, to where they ask their managers how much time is being spent on what. And then they realize that what they thought was being spent on certain things is far from what is actually happening. So it helps close the gap and create operational efficiencies, getting those guys, on it, getting them out of the yard faster, whatever it is, the truck's loaded faster. Another opportunity to create more profit is upselling and cross-selling. You're already there on the property. What else can you do that's not going to soak up your guys' time, that's going to be profitable? And, Steve, I know there's some things that you guys do with this on the upselling and cross-selling on both sides of the services that you provide.
We do. We don't go too far though, right? We have a couple of upsells and side sells, we'll call them, but not tons, right? So our upsell really is our lime applications. We soil test every property and we sell lime. We sell a lot of lime. Our record year was 30 tractor trailer loads of lime. People say, why do you put down that much? Do the quick lime, all this. Well, that's not our shtick. Our shtick is that we put down the right amount of lime based on a soil test. We don't cut any corners. We're not looking for quick lime. We're looking to add material to the soil. That's our, and very few companies have that mindset. Like we don't guess, we soil test, right? And then also, seeding is another one of ours. And so we have a very specific grass seed mix that I put together. We get it shipped on a rail car all the way from Oregon, and it's designed specifically for the Connecticut soils. So we have specialty seeds. We do it with, specialty equipment, and we spray it with a liquid organic seed starter, things that the homeowner really can't do, our competitors are unaware of or unwilling, so that it's unique. And it's also, kind of an upsell. So those are things. And then on the landscape side, the cross sell or upsell really is the landscape maintenance. So after we put it in, we're following up. It's not just here, it's installed, see you later. We're making sure the weeds don't take it over. We're making sure it's pruned horticulturally correctly, and it's maintained for years. And some of these landscapes, we'll maintain for 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that point, right? It's like you don't do a lot, you just do a little, which is enough. And I know that we've talked about too is sell to who you already have sold to. So dropping by and checking on previous landscapes that you've installed to see like maybe what else, they might need, or it's been a while, are they ready for a change or something like that? So the other one too is invest in technology, which we've kind of talked about is, technology can increase our revenue long term. So, and these are things like anything automated. So really leaning into these industry specific softwares, that's a full management system from, scheduling your routing, doing your billing, your customer communication, your team communication, all of those things in one software, because you don't want to be disconnected. And there's fortunately this industry, and not industries are all the same, but this industry specifically has some fantastic all-in-one softwares out there, and they're continually to make improvements on these. So definitely investing in those softwares is another way that's going to improve your profitability, not just when you sell your business as an asset, but what money you're keeping in your bank account as you do business.
And here's a really low cost investment in technology is, so we have a text app where people can text to our business phone and text photos in. So we don't have to go out there. They can text something. We're like, okay, that's this. We'll schedule that to be taken care of at your next treatment. And they're like, okay. So we don't have to send somebody out there. So it speeds the communication. The client's happier. We can schedule at the proper time to be treated, and no one had to leave the office. And it happens in minutes, and as opposed to days or hours. That has saved us a small fortune, and it's really improved, client satisfaction. Also having lots of photos and information about our clients. So if they call up, like, okay, we're looking at the overhead in your client map. Are you talking about the left corner by that, the evergreen? Oh yeah, that's exactly right. Oh, do you still have that red van? Oh no, we don't have the red van because got caught in the picture, right? We sold that. And they're like, how do you have that? So having those details, you can work through things much quicker, and it's really simple technology.
So the last question is, how do I increase the resale value of my business, right? So we're working in our businesses every day, and it would be really nice if when we're done and we're at the end of our journey as being entrepreneurs, and we're saying, hey, I either want to move on or I want to retire, that you have a solid resale value to where you can get, some money that's going to contribute to your next venture or to the level of comfort in your retirement, right? So one of the things that's extremely important is financial records. And, from coming from an accounting firm on the other side, I can't tell you how many times I have opened up a set of books with, someone who's showing up, getting a consultation, and there is so much work to do, which is very sad for us because, they're going to have to pay for things that they already had done. So you want to have solid financial records that you can produce that shows the long-term profitability and value of your business that is going to appeal to a buyer that's showing up at the table. So that's extremely important.
And as someone that's bought a number of businesses, one of the things that I look for is like clean books, right? So what does clean books mean? That means when I look at your profit and loss, your income statement, that what should be above the line as a cost of goods sold is above the line, and what should be below the line in overhead is below the line. So if labor is below the line in overhead, but it was the labor that produced the work, then that means the books are not being kept correctly. It should be above the line. It should be considered a cost of the goods sold for those jobs. And then also I look on the balance sheet and I see you can't have negative liabilities. So if we look at our balance sheet and there's lots of negative liabilities, that's what we owe someone, our liabilities, right? So a negative liability would mean that they owe us, then it should be in the asset column. So if I see lots of like negative liabilities or just lots of things, that means, I can't fully trust their books. So it devalues it. The most I've ever paid for a business was the one that had the cleanest, best books, because everything could be documented. So, they got the highest value, out of anybody.
Yeah. One of the other things you can do to increase your resale value is brand equity. So you're building this strong brand that's going to be appealing to purchase. One that comes to mind is someone that we've been working with for many years, Eco Lawn of Eastlake, Ohio. He's got such a fantastic brand. You can see it everywhere, through the community. They recognize the trucks. It's just so obvious, and it's just such a positive brand that connects with the community. So making sure that you build out that brand, it has, a positive vibe to it. People connect with it, and it's presented, professionally and consistently. So that's extremely important and can be a huge asset as well.
Yes. Don Zerbe has done an amazing job with that worm. He has a huge worm. It's on the side of his truck, 8-foot tall worm, whatever, 6-foot tall worm. It's amazing. All his lawn signs, you go down a street and there's like 10, 11 signs at 10, 11 houses. He's built such a brand. It really built a value to his company. The next is business documentation. So what documentation and systems need to be in place to make the business attractive and transferable to a new owner? That, like I said, the clean set of books, all the taxes are paid. There's systems for everything. If you ask them for information, like, what about your client list? Okay, here's the file. Let me download it. What about your social media? Okay, here's all my social media. What about your payroll records? There's different states. I think it's Rhode Island. They really have a pretty thorough checklist. The state does, as far as proving that you don't owe, federal, state taxes. You don't owe, debtors or creditors before you sell the business. So, having all that stuff, having all your bank accounts, the addresses of the banks, where your loans are or where they were, any kind of information, all the paid off, all of your, making sure that you have the titles to all the vehicles, you have all the paid certificates on all the equipment. So that's the kind of documentation that helps build the value at the sale.
Yeah. And you will need that when you go through a sale. I don't know if any of you all listening have been to our webinar, but we talk about, how to prepare for either buying or selling a business. And so if you haven't, keep an eye out for it. There's some great information in there along with a checklist. But you're going to need all this stuff when you go to sell your business anyways. So, and if you have it all together and you show up and, in a sense, drop it on the table, you're going to be able to walk away with a nice price, for your asset. So some of the things we'll leave you with today is, stay ahead of the curve. So you're always going to want to be on the lookout for any new trends or changes in your industry that can increase the value of your business or increase the efficiency and profitability overall. So make sure that you stay informed and proactive, and even, anticipate market shifts or positions in your business for future demand. So that will be helpful to you as well.
Absolutely. And thank you for joining us. And we look forward to you joining us on the next podcast. Thanks for listening to the Green Profit Academy Pros Podcast,
the show that digs into the challenges of growing a lawn care and landscape business while maximizing your profit.